Active War Direct Action is a real-time strategy game that will remind you a lot about the old Command & Conquer games, the kind that mix live-action cutscenes with gameplay. But no one's made this kind of game for years now, which is why Active War feels like it's such a bold gamble. But it works. This is a real-time strategy game that feels like you're taking part in an episode of 24, and is filled with a sort of whiz-bang, high-tech moments of a techno-thriller. That's thanks to Dale Brown, a New York Times bestselling author who wrote the game's story. So in Active War, you'll command the forces of the US military and Task Force Talon, an elite top-secret military unit, as they battle the forces of the Consortium, an evil conspiracy that's coordinating terrorist attacks around the world to jack up oil prices through the roof. Active War just works on so many levels. The game's production values are amazing at times. Live action used to mean seeing a couple of actors chew the scenery in front of the blue screen, but in Active War, you get cool action scenes worthy of movies. And yes, the budget and the acting do show their limitations at times, but for a game, it feels like a step above from what we're used to seeing. But aside from the live-action movies, Active War is a blast. Basically, you get to play with lots of cool military units in settings such as San Francisco, Washington, D.C., and London. And this is a game that really gets the idea of urban combat, because buildings are actually treated like buildings. This means that you can stuff buildings full of infantry, where they can set up ambushes and chew up attacking forces. It also means that you'll have the short end of the stick when you're on the attack, so you can tackle urban warfare a variety of ways. You can just send in the tanks and artillery and hammer buildings until they collapse, or you can send in infantry of your own and conduct house-to-house warfare. Either way, you'll experience lots of cinematic-like moments, like when you see the tanks blast the front of a building off, or watch as your Black Hawk helicopters deliver assault teams to the roofs of a building. And if you think that's fun, just wait to get to do that with the US Capitol, or even the White House. Active War really is an outstanding real-time strategy game. The game has such a great pace, so it's never too bogged down in resource gathering or base management. The only resource in the game is money, and you collect it so many different ways. You can drill for oil, but you can also capture prisoners, which earns you a bounty. You also get money for each prisoner that you hold over time, so it's actually worth it to treat your enemies humanely, which is something of a first for a game. And then there are bank jobs, where you get to send your infantry and seize a bank or treasury building and drain the money inside. Talk about getting an emergency loan. There are all sorts of memorable moments in Active War, from some of the early cutscenes where you see commandos taking fire in front of the Buckingham Palace, to the sheer joy that you have when you finally send in B-2 bombers to bomb a terrorist camp of the Stone Age. The mix of real-world and futuristic prototype weapons is so well done that you really get a sense of what warfare could be like in a decade or two. There's one downside of the game, it's that the single-player game is a bit too short, but the skirmish and multiplayer mode should provide some fair amount of replay. And as much as we like the beginning of the story, it does leave a somewhat unsatisfying conclusion. And yes, it bears repeating that some of the acting leaves you wanting, especially when the actors sport the bad Russian accents. Still, that doesn't change the fact that Active War is simply one of the best looking and best playing strategy games of 2005. If you're looking for a game that feels like a techno-thriller novel, then definitely check out Active War.